Conditions May Apply by CinnamonPinecones. Read by Distracted by Books. Chapter 159. What have I done? Sweet Jesus, what have I done? Hizashi hadn't been this mad in years. They were absolutely seething, but Izuku looked like he was terrified, so they had to reel it in. They had to reel it in. They had never seen Shota that angry, and God, as mad as they were at him, Yagi looked absolutely devastated. Sho went too far. This was such a mess, and the poor kid walked right into the middle of it. Hizashi guided him to the bathroom and shut the door behind them. He had Izuku sit on the ledge of the tub and turned on the faucet. He was focusing so much on not projecting his anger that he didn't even check in with the kid. He was sitting on the ledge as far away as he could be from Hizashi and hugging his arms to his chest as he looked down at his feet. The water had warmed enough, and they put the stopper in. As the water rose to the other end of the tub, it turned a dirty pink color. Shit. He must have cut his foot. Of course he did. He went running around the city without shoes on. Kiddo, can you wash your feet off for me? And then let me take a look at them. It looks like you might have gotten cut, he said, gesturing to the pinkish water. Let's swap spots, he offered, and stood when Izuku didn't react. He looked up at them when they stood, so they gestured to the spot they'd just vacated and handed him the soap. He quickly scrambled to comply with the silent request. Hizashi was hoping that all that shouting might have been a breakthrough, that the kid was finally letting himself feel and let himself be, but no, he was just trying to protect them, just trying to protect anyone and everything like he always did. He did his best not to be disappointed by that. It was still progress. It might not be for the reasons he'd like for it to be, but it was something. It made him sick to know that the one time the kid put his foot down, they couldn't heed his request. He's sure under all that fear and worry, they had just lost a good amount of trust with him. But it had to be done. Izuku's safety was more important than his trust. They were going to need to talk about this, but that could wait for another time. When he finished washing his feet, Hizashi drained the tub and had him do it again with clean running water to make sure whatever lacerations he had were thoroughly cleansed. Once he was done with that, they sat back down on the ledge and put a towel in their lap. Let me see them tootsies, kid. You got cut, and I want to make sure there's nothing stuck in it, he explained as he patted his lap. The kid grabbed one foot in his hand and turned it up, forcing his legs into an unnatural pretzel position so he could look at it himself before checking the other one and handing it over. Jeez, kiddo, you're flexible. If I did that, I think I'd need to get a hip replaced, he joked as he went to check the cut. It was on the heel of his left foot. Thankfully, it wasn't that bad, and it was clear of debris. He scrunched the towel up around his foot to dry it before sliding out from under it and setting it on the ledge. It's not too bad. I don't think we're going to have to amputate, but I am going to get you a bandage so you aren't bleeding all over the place and getting cat fur stuck in your heel forever, they poked with a laugh as they started rustling through the cabinet under the sink for a bandage. Once they found it, they patted his heel dry and stuck it on. All right, you'll be good as new in no time, he chirped with a smile. Thanks, Izuku stuttered out as he looked at the ground. It sounded like he wanted to say more, so Hizashi gave him a moment. I'm sorry, he mumbled after a while. All right, looks like they're talking about this now then. No, kid, you don't have anything to apologize for. I get it. I broke the door and I shouted at you, he argued. Well, first of all, the door's not really broken. It's still completely functional. And second of all, did you break it on purpose? They shot back. No, he quickly asserted. Well, then it was an accident. Accidents happen all the time, and I'm not mad at you for that. Sho won't be either. As for the shouting, it didn't seem like Sho cared at all, and neither did I. No one was listening to you. You were very clear about what you needed, and we still didn't listen to you. That's frustrating." Midoriya was looking at him with a very confused expression, but he continued regardless. "I wish we could have listened to you. Your opinions and thoughts matter to us. I appreciate you trying to protect us, but your safety is important. So if there's something putting you in danger, then we need to know about it. We want to protect you too." It broke his heart to see how completely dumbfounded Midoriya was every time they treated him with any modicum of decency. Like the thought was so foreign, like he'd never experienced something like this before. He didn't know when he met the Shinsos, so for at least the first 12 years of his life, he probably hadn't. He hadn't heard anything other than Yagi leaving from the other side of the door, and he quite desperately wanted to go check on Sho. But right now, he needed to make sure Izuku was okay. He came first. "You all right, kiddo?" He looked up at them when they spoke and let his furrowed brow relax for only a split second before it was back and he was chewing at his lip. He kept moving like he was going to say something, but stopped himself last second, so Hizashi sat on the bathroom floor patiently. "You know that I'm about... You don't..." He gave several false starts to a sentence before trailing off and saying, "Never mind." His eyes were glassy, but Hizashi didn't think it was the best time to push the topic. His mind was split between a million different things, and they would all need to talk about this later anyway. "Okay, we can talk about it later," he conceded as he stood up. He glanced back at Midoriya one more time before he went to open the door. He left it open, encouraging the kid to leave the cramped room as well. As he went back into the living room to look for Sho, he heard the kid's door shut behind him. He wished he wasn't always hiding away in there, but that was probably for the best right now. The two of them needed space to parse through all the information they just received. Sho seemed to have agreed because he found him in their bedroom sitting on the ottoman at the foot of the bed with his head in his hands. He looked up when they entered. "Is he all right?" he asked immediately. "Yeah, he's okay. He got a cut on his foot. He's a little spooked, and he tried to apologize for everything, but he's okay," they replied as they sat down heavily beside him. "This is all so messed up. That poor kid can't catch a break," they added with a huff after a moment of silence. Shota just hummed in agreement and put his head back into his hands, so Hizashi wrapped their arm around his back and laid their head on his shoulder. In response, Shota extracted one of his hands from his hair and gently grabbed their leg just above the knee. "I called Nedzu and asked who else knows about this. It's us, Chio, Night Eye, some hero called Gran Torino, Detective Tsukachi, who is apparently best buds with Yagi, and potentially the entirety of the League of Villains," Shota stated bluntly into the silence. "Great," he responded with no enthusiasm. "Why the hell did any of them think it was a good idea to keep this from us? He's been here for months now. I'm his damn teacher. I should have at least been informed of how recently he got his quirk. I should have known that from day one," Shota quietly ranted. "I don't know, baby. I don't know. We should talk to Chio or Suka." "No, I'm far too angry for that right now." "I know. Yeah, me too. This is such a mess," they lamented again. "We need to figure out what we're going to do about Yagi." "Sho, I know theoretically I said I'd help you hide a body, but Japan's #1 hero is pushing it," they mumbled into his shoulder. Sho huffed out a small laugh at that, which made them smile. God, he's glad he didn't have to do all this alone. "I meant what I said. I screwed up, and he has questions now. I'd prefer for him to never speak to Izuku again, but unfortunately, I don't think that's feasible. I essentially told him to piss off and mind his own business. But I'm not sure that's a viable solution in the long term, he elaborated. We'll have to talk to both Nezu and Izuku about that. I don't know. Did you bring it up when you talked to him earlier? No. We should do that first. And if he gives us the go-ahead, then we can talk to Izuku about it. Yeah, that makes sense. Shota agreed before they fell back into silence. What's Yagi playing at? Why Izuku? Why did he do any of this? What do you mean, Sho? He manipulated him into taking that quirk. He's just a kid. Why the hell did he do that? I don't think he did it maliciously. What do you mean he didn't do it maliciously? Did he just accidentally stumble into masterfully setting up the perfect scenario to manipulate a child? I don't mean to be rude, but I don't think he's smart enough to have thought that far ahead. Sho let out something between a scoff and a bark of laughter at that. Honestly, Sho, look at him. The man hasn't been in touch with reality for decades, and he clearly adores the kid. I've never seen him act hostile toward him, and Izuku has never acted afraid of him. I don't know what's going on between the two of them, but Yagi had this quirk in UA. He couldn't have been any older than Izuku when he got it, and I never pegged him as the pinnacle of mental stability. Yeah, I'm still beyond furious. He's an adult. He should know better. But I think he needs help just as much as Izuku does. It's cyclical. They're too similar, too self-sacrificial, and obsessed with keeping everyone but themselves safe and happy. You're far too kind, Zashi. Maybe, but I don't think I'm wrong. No, I don't think you are either, he admitted with a groan. I would like to beat the shit out of him a little bit, though. Yeah, me too, but I don't think that would go over well. I'd erase his quirk for you. It'd give me a front row seat. Thanks, babe. I knew I could count on you, they replied with a small laugh. All right, we need to make a plan. We need to talk to Nezu first about letting Yagi in on the Ivy situation. Then we need to talk to the kid about it. We need to talk to him about all of this, actually. We need to get his side of the story. Hopefully, we can do that today. Then we should have another meeting with Nezu, Yagi, and Izuku to talk about how we're going to move forward with this, because this rules out the foster system for him. He's either staying at UA or staying with us. And no, don't look at me like that. I can feel you making a face. We can't just drop him in some civilian's home with that big of a target on his back. Besides, I know you want to keep him here just as much as I do. Quit laughing at me, he demanded as he sat up straight and forced their head off its perch on the back of his shoulder. No, you're right. I know. We need to figure out what to do about this, or what they're already doing about this, if anything, they conceded. As I was saying before you started laughing at me, we need to meet with the three of them and make a safety plan. He doesn't go out much, but I don't want him going out by himself. We should ask him if he's all right with carrying a tracker, because I don't want to have to sick a chaperone on him 24/7. Why are you laughing? Stop it, Shota demanded petulantly. God, he was acting like such a dad. They were caught up in between laughing and crying. They never thought they'd have this. They always wanted a family, and Sho had been open to adopting one day, but they were always so busy. They didn't have time for a kid, and the universe just wrapped this one up in a bow and violently drop-kicked him into their path. They wished that the circumstances that brought him to them had never happened, but they couldn't be more grateful for what they had. Why are you crying? Sho asked far more gently as he wiped a tear from their cheek. No, I'm fine. It's just a lot. And you're acting like such a dad. They huffed out a laugh. And I want him to stay too, he admitted. Sho gave him a sad smile as he held their face in his hand. We should probably talk about that too, Shota said as his smile fell and he returned his hand to his lap. What do you mean? They asked. He needs help. More help than we can give him, and it's strange to see him like that, like a child, even though he is. It's just, for the longest time, I saw him as I don't know, a friend, a colleague. I don't know that I'm the best option for him, he explained solemnly as he looked down at the floor. Baby, that kid has been to hell and back. Actually, not even back. He's still in the thick of it. I don't think anyone can be the help he needs. Can you honestly think of a better option? They challenged. I don't know. Exactly. It's a shit situation. It's always been a shit situation. We just have to make the best of it, and I think the three of us are more than capable of making the best of a shit situation. We have plenty of practice. Shota scoffed at that. And we love him. He hasn't really had that before. At the end of the day, it's up to him, but I think we can do it. But not on our own, but we can get him the help he needs, and we can be there for him, right? Shota sat there thinking about it for a while before responding, yeah, maybe. I think just having someone who wants him around is more important than our psychological qualifications anyway. He needs to feel loved, and we can do that. They added, yeah, Shota stated, sounding slightly more sure of his answer. Okay, let's have brunch at this point, and then we can try and get a hold of Nedzu again. I'm just going to order in. I can't be bothered right now, Hizashi said as they pulled out their phone and started looking at the nearby restaurants as Sho watched over their shoulder. Izuku was freaking out. He just yelled at them and broke their door. He heard it crack as he slammed it, and he just screamed at All Might right to his face. Oh, shit. Oh, shit. And now they're going to know everything. They're going to know everything. They're going to know that he, oh, shit. They're going to know he's a null. He just screamed at them, broke their door, and now they know he's a null. Damn it. He was born to screw up everything, wasn't he? What was he thinking? How long had he been out here? Where even was he? He didn't recognize much of anything down here on the south side. Should he go back? Or would that make it worse? He should apologize, right? Where was he supposed to go if they didn't want him there anymore? Foster care? Hell no. He'd rather be homeless again. He needed to fix this. Where was he? How was he supposed to get back? It took him an embarrassingly long time to realize he had a phone in his hand, one that could actually connect to cell service and use GPS. God, he's such an idiot. He took a look at where he was and started heading back while he tried to figure out how to apologize. He didn't realize until he was back in the Genkan that he didn't have shoes on to take off. All Might's shoes were still here, but the apartment was deathly silent. He thought about bolting again, but they must have heard the door, right? Slowly he crept around the corner, and the sight that greeted him was not what he would have expected. Mike was physically restraining Eraser, who looked like he was about to throttle someone, and Mike looked like they wanted to let him. That was terrifying. He'd never seen Eraser this mad. He'd never seen Mike angry at all. Instinctually, he went to take a step back, but then he saw All Might. He was sitting on one of the armchairs, and tears were pouring down his cheeks. He looked so sad. No, beyond sad. He looked gutted. Midoriya, my boy, He started to speak, but Mike cut him off. No, no, you're not speaking to him, Yagi. Get out, they barked. Oh, he was angry. He was really angry. They turned their attention towards him and he froze. They were saying something. He knew they were saying something, but Izuku couldn't hear them through the pounding sound of his own blood rushing through his veins. He let go of Eraser and started walking over to him, but he still couldn't move. Mike wouldn't hurt him, right? He wouldn't. He never. But they never knew he was a Null before. Was that going to change things? They planted their hand on his shoulder and started guiding him away from the living room. He had no clue where they were going. His chest was too tight to even thinking about something else. But then they took him to the bathroom and started running the faucet. The water was warm on his feet, and they were talking again, but he couldn't hear them. They handed him a bar of soap and gestured to his feet. Oh, yeah, shit, he got his dirty feet all over the house. He cleaned them as quickly as he could, but Mike had him do it again. They patted his foot dry and put a bandage over the cut he didn't even realize he had. He tried to apologize, but they wouldn't have any of it. It didn't make any sense. He wanted to ask why he was being so nice. He wanted to ask if they knew what he was, if they cared, but he was too afraid. He didn't understand why they didn't hate him. Both of them. Hell, all three of them. He was such a mess, such a hassle. All he did was cause problems. Why weren't they mad? He found himself tucked into the corner of his bed, clutching his cat plush to his chest and wondering. He didn't remember how he got there. He didn't even remember Mike leaving. What the hell happened? Why was All Might crying? Why were they so mad at All Might and not at Izuku? He sat there stewing in his own confusion until he heard a knock on the door. He let out a shaky, yeah? And Eraser opened it. You like tamagoyaki, kid? We're ordering some from up the street, but we can get you something else if you want. He offered calmly, as if this morning never happened in the first place. No, that's fine. Thank you. He tapped on his phone for a minute before responding. All right. It'll be here in 30 to 40 minutes, he said before leaving and shutting the door behind him. Izuku didn't think he was ever going to understand them. Why were they so nice to him? Maybe they were masochists. Toshinori's legs carried him to his car in a daze. He didn't fully remember getting here to begin with. Had he been crying this whole time? He supposed that was a good thing about this form. People tended to leave him alone. He was too gangly and skeletal, and folks didn't find that very approachable. The last half hour was playing in his head on a loop, and the tears wouldn't stop pouring down his cheeks. He'd been letting them fall unchecked, and his collar had become uncomfortably wet. So he went to release the top button, but his fumbling fingers struggled against it uselessly, and he gave up quickly. He'd never seen Midoriya so angry, and Aizawa and Yamada seemed completely unfazed. He didn't know such a fiery part of his protege had never presented itself after knowing him for a year at this point. It was becoming more and more apparent that the boy was quite skilled at hiding things from him. He couldn't get the memory of Aizawa shouting at him out of his head. The Midoriya was... God. He left him on a roof. Obviously, he got down from that one unscathed, but he could have. He finally let go of the tattered shreds of his composure and buried his face in his hands as he sobbed like a child. He could have lost him before he even truly knew him. He loved that boy with his whole heart, like he was his own flesh and blood. He regretted it the moment he said it. Why didn't he just take it back? How could he have left him there? Did he not notice any of this the whole time? He didn't notice he was homeless. He didn't notice he didn't have a family. And he didn't notice he was potentially a hair's width away from throwing himself off a rooftop that day. He had failed this kid time and time again since the very beginning, and the horrifying guilt was eating him alive. It had been eating him alive, and this felt like the last straw. There was no coming back from this. Not for him. But of course, Midoriya had already forgiven him. The boy had forgiven him before he even knew what he truly did to him, and that made his broken heart shatter even more. God, if Nana could see him now. For all the good he'd done, he always failed the people who mattered most. He wanted to give up and run away before he could mess this up any more than he already had, but Midoriya had enough people who had given up on him. He had to do better, but he had no clue where to start, so for now, he just let himself cry his eyes out in the parking lot and thanked his lucky stars for tinted windows and the unlimited supply of second chances this kid had to give. End of chapter.